Whenever the Jewish people face sad news, as we do today, we always respond with 3 Hebrew words. And in English, those words mean praised is the source of all truth. And the truth, the ultimate truth that we face today is that we have to appreciate one another and respect one another and love one another as much as we can, because life comes to a close too soon. So if everyone could please repeat those 3 Hebrew words after me. Baruch, Dayan, Ha'emet. Praised is the source of all truth. Adonai Natan v'Adonai lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai mevorach. The Lord has given us a great gift, and that gift is no more. But one of the marvels and the mysteries of the gifts given to us by God is that even when they are no longer physically with us, they nonetheless remain with us for many, many months and many, many years to come. Psalm 15, Mizmor LeDavid. Adonai, mi yagor b'yoholecha, mi yishkon b'hor kodshecha, holech tamim ufoel tzedek v'dover emet bilvavo, lo ragala lishono, lo asa l're'ehu ra'ah, v'cherpa lo nasa al krovo. Nivzeh be'einav nim'as, ve'et yir'ei Adonai yechabed, nishba lahara v'lo yamir, kaspo lo natan ben neshech, v'shochad al naki lo lakach, ose'ela lo yimot li'olam. Do we deserve to enter God's sanctuary? May we merit a place in the presence of God. Let us live with integrity and do what is right and speak the truth without deceit. Have no slander upon our tongue, nor do evil to others. Never mistreat a neighbor, spurn a contemptible person, but honor those who revere the Lord. Never retract a promise once made, even if it brings us harm. Lend no money at unfair rates. Accept no bribe against the innocent. Should we make these deeds our own, then we shall stand firm forever. Then we shall certainly merit a place in the presence of God. Psalm 23, Mizmor LeDavid. Adonai ro'i lo echsar. Bin ot deshe yarbitzeni. V'yamei menuchot yenahaleni. Nafshi yeshovev yancheni v'magalei tzedek l'man shemo. Gam ki elech begeit salmavet lo irara ki ata imadi. Shiv techa mishantecha hema yanachamuni. Taroch lefanai shulchan neged sorarai. Dishanta v'Hashemen roshi kosi rivaya. Achtov v'chesed yerdefuni kol yemei chayai. V'shavti b'veit Adonai la'orech yamim. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside the still waters, restores my soul, guides me in straight paths, for that is the essence of godliness. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you, Lord, are with me. Your rod and your staff, they guide me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Mark Borenstein. That's a good name. That's a Shem Tov. A good name, a good reputation, a good to neshama. And we've all had an experience with the goodness of his heart and his soul. And this afternoon, too soon, I think, but this afternoon we pay homage to that man and his goodness. So we're going to start out. I'm going to call on Jeremy for a few words about his father.
Today, we honor the purest soul I've ever known, and maybe I only see it that way because he's my dad, my best friend, and my hero. But if you put a gun to my head and tell me to pick one person that if they were to find a wallet on the floor with $3,000 cash and a driver's license, would try to find the owner of that wallet, 10 out of 10 times it would be my father. And I know that he would garner more happiness from giving the wallet back than he would spending the money. Kind, helpful, compassionate. These are some of the words people have described him as in the past few days. And I speak for him in saying that I know he appreciates all of you being here. Everything that's good in me is from him. He devoted his entire life to trying to help others reach higher levels of happiness, including the patients he worked at with Pilgrim for over 40 years, my sister and I, and my grandmother and grandfather. In his later days, he enjoyed nothing more than trying to make my nieces, Madden, Spencer, and Grayson, happy. This past Sunday, the ticket in the cup holder of his car read he was on his way to their dance recital at Jan Martin. He was always there to support us, whether it was coaching my basketball and baseball games, attending my sister's cheerleading and football games, coming to Florida to help me through shoulder surgery, or being literally anywhere at any time to help any other human being. Everyone who crossed paths with Mark appreciated him in that moment. He would always take to greet, compliment, and try to make you laugh. From Starbucks cashiers to mine and Ronnie's friends, there's nothing he enjoyed more than sacrificing his time, energy, and resources for others, except perhaps his beloved basketball. While I envy the fact I never got to see the 5'10" Jewish point guard you all speak of in his prime, and his pickleball and golf skills make it hard for me to picture it, I can only imagine how much he enjoyed playing based on the amount of games we watched together, and more importantly, his absolutely absurd sneaker collection. There's nothing I enjoy more in life than watching sports and going to games with him, especially Yankees and Knicks. Every single game, I know he will be watching with me. Even while lying next to him in the hospital over the past few nights, holding his hand as he snored, I still felt the same comfort and familiarity as the thousands of times we watched in the den as he snored on the couch. So it was fitting that the last two nights, three of the most powerful men on the planet put on a show for us. Joel Embiid, or Embiid as he would call him, scored 40 points in a 102 win for the 76ers. What I cherish about the moments before he passed, Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton hit 3 home runs in a 9-6 victory for the Yankees on the date 6-9 while he was 69 years old. Stanton, who hasn't hit a home run in over a month, fit the bill for us. In his waning hours, his career has been split between Miami and New York. While I've known my father in a different time than many of you, I have no trouble believing the young man he was from the stories you kindly shared with me. His youth in the 60s and 70s illustrated a daring, adventurous man who cross-dressed with my mother at parties, broke dishes in the kitchen of the kibbutz so they think he was too clumsy to work in the kitchen, and turned down a PhD opportunity so he could pursue his faith and passion in the Zionist movement in Israel. Him and Wendy once drove 25 hours straight to Miami, a story I'm sure she'll elaborate on today. My parents, one thing I didn't know, went on a yearly European vacations before my sister and I were born. In Albany, him and his girlfriend would show off their dancing skills at the discos, and in Jackson Heights, him and his wife would go to the theaters back when movies were good. As a second-generation Holocaust survivor, he earned his career in Long Island and helped move my mother and our family to a suburban life. He was as well liked at work as at summer camp and became president of the Workers' Union in no time, something I knew he took pride in. I truly hope I'll be as good a father to my children as he was to my sister and I. My dad had no expectations of us, from things I excelled at, such as the saxophone, to things I sucked at, like sports. The only expectations he always had, of which many times I've fallen short, is that we did the right thing, tried our best, and learned from our mistakes. Although I'm sad to know his body will not be here to witness my wedding, my children, and the level of material success I'll reach in life, I'm overly grateful for him being by my side as we destroyed everything in my path together over the past 7 years I've been in Florida. Of late, he would thank me for speaking with him, a thank you that sounded ridiculously backwards from a man who never gave up on me through thick and thin, truly believed and respected me, and gave every hour I needed to grow and bounce things off of, even if I didn't take his advice in the end. I'm happy many significant new accolades we reached came in the past 12 months, and although I was set to surprise him next week on Father's Day, I know he'll be on our team with us the rest of the way until we meet again in paradise. We saw a rainbow on our flight to New York, which according to Greek mythology is a pathway for an angel between earth and heaven. According to Jewish faith, there are 7 heavens for those who choose to believe in the afterlife, one I have no doubt he is headed for. So I can either feel angry, guilty, or punished for the days I won't get to speak with him in human form, or be grateful for the 30 years I got to have the best, most supportive, selfless dad and best friend any child could ask for. When my girlfriend Paula, who he absolutely adored, put his chai she had been untangling for nearly an hour on his chest, the same one that sits on mine today, it seemed as if he was instantly ready to cross the rainbow leading to him wherever he is headed next. And you can bet your ass that he'll spread happiness to more people, babies, and puppies wherever he's going, which is perhaps the reason God needed to take him from us now. When we left the hospital, I opened the windows, blasted his favorite song, Thunderstruck by AC/DC, and peeled out of the property in true Borny fashion. As we cruised down the road leading to Pilgrim, a 2 a.m. train signaled us to hold on, greeting us at the tracks with 2 loud roars as his nod of approval. Paul and I looked at each other and couldn't help but smile like something out of a movie. I know my Father will continue to radiate his love and energy down upon us, and if we all can try to live even half as selfless, helpful, generous, and caring as Mark Borenstein, our world will be a heavenly place.
Jeremy, thank you so much. That was just beautiful. And what a great tribute to Dad. and he was among your biggest cheerleaders. Um, I did not know about the cross-dressing. Thank you for it fits in some way. Harriet.
Hi. Some of this may be redundant by all of us because we didn't really know what each other was saying. Okay, well, I'm going to start with a bit of semi-humor, as my husband was a funny guy. You may not laugh, but here goes. Do you know who Karnak the Magnificent was, AKA Johnny Carson? For you young folk, you may not know. But here's the answer, as he would say. Stubborn. What's the question? Who was the worst? What was Mark's worst trait? Why are we sitting here today? Because he was so stubborn. Why? If he hit his head, it started to hurt. It developed excruciating headaches. Why couldn't he go to the doctor? I plotted and prodded to no avail. So here we are, a loving, caring, bright, selfless, but stubborn man rests in this coffin. Anyway, let's move on. We shall celebrate his life. He was born on September 1st, 1951 in Brooklyn, New York. Sadly, my kids and I were planning his surprise 70th birthday very soon. His parents, Sidney and Celia, were Holocaust survivors, totally infatuated with their baby son. He was a rebirth for them because they had lost their whole family. Mark was named after his paternal grandfather. When his parents came to the US, there was no money in their pockets. They worked and worked until they saved enough to move out of the Brooklyn projects called the Pink Houses. It wasn't a good neighborhood for a kid to grow up in. At the age of 8, his family moved to Jackson Heights in a house that Celia still owns and lived in until recently. It was like paradise for them. Mark started a new school, made new friends, and found his passion over the years in a local park. Guess what? Basketball. He honed his skills in the 78th Street Park that he spent many hours in. He also played other sports. That was his motto. He was an athlete. He was an only child, but through his sports, he made many, many friends. In the summer, when Mark was 8, his parents decided he needed to go to the country and out of the city. They sent him to an upstate Zionist camp that he thrived at. His best friends in life from that camp are all sitting here today. His nickname was Borny because there were 3 Marks. He's still called that by them. The camp was unusual because all throughout the year, the kids got together on Friday nights in the city to discuss Israel, Israeli dancing, and all things Zionist. They truly grew up together. Some of them went to Israel and made Aliyah. That was the camp's role to have people come to Israel. They tried to train the kids. Okay, Mark went to Newtown High School and then LIU, then CCNY. At LIU, he made the freshman basketball team. Sadly, he broke his leg and missed too many practices, so they cut him. He was devastated. In a year or two, though, he decided to go to CCNY, became a psych major, and knew he would go into the mental health field. He also took a Holocaust class with Elie Wiesel at City, which helped him understand his parents' experiences. It stayed with him forever. He is a true 2G. So after college, he did go to Israel. He tried it for a little while. He was there during the 6-Day War, but he really missed his parents and he missed the city. He came back. He decided to go to an MSW program. He applied to SUNY Albany, and that's where I come in. Okay. Okay, we met in class, studied in the dorms together, played ball in the quad, volleyball, softball, etc. And one day, my friend Andy, she's here, got hit in the nose with a pitch. She was the pitcher. She started to bleed. Here comes Mark running across the field. He took her with me to a bathroom, cleaned her up, got her ice, and I'm thinking, what a nice guy. And that's the beginning of our relationship. He truly is. He helps people all the time, as Jeremy said. If you're stuck in a car, there was a neighbor he saw outside our window on Woodbury Road. He would stop, he would go out, he would help. If he saw homeless people, he would give them food. He wouldn't give them money. He would go in a local McDonald's. He would bring out food. This was who he was. It was his core. And people love him for that. That's why, thank God, he would be so happy to see you all here. So continuing in our courtship, the year is 1975. Guess what music is playing? We were in the disco era. Mark and I loved the hustle. We would go to clubs, practice in our rooms, etc. My mom actually asked me once, this is true, do you think you're going through life dancing? And I emphatically said, yes. Like, what else is there? There's no problems. Okay, he had his MSW, I had my graduate degree, my guidance degree, and we moved back to New York afterwards. We both got jobs, but there was a hiring freeze. So I couldn't get a teaching job, I was a para. Mark worked for UPS for 1 year. And then the state opened up, and our friend Fran, okay, where are you, helped him get into a social work job at Pilgrim Psychiatric Center. I worked in Queens, he worked in Queens. I mean, we settled in Queens, not a bad commute for Mark, and some of his camp friends actually lived there too. After 4 years, though, I wanted to get out of the city. I wanted the American dream and moved to suburbia. So we picked Plainview. It was close for him, and it was really pretty good for me. This week has been 41 years we're in that house. It's amazing. What a blessing Plainview has been for us. We got involved in our temple. We actually joined 2 young couples club in 2 temples to meet people because we knew no one. We started to make friends, but of course Mark's goal was to find basketball games. So he did. He made some wonderful friends there. Some of you may be here today. He played slow pitch softball. He just was an athlete and he kept busy. We made a lot of couple friends. He was very busy and happy. Then we started to try for a family. Unfortunately, that didn't work out for some time. So to appease our feelings, we started to travel in the summers as I was a teacher. I had summers off, and he was able to take 3 to 4 weeks off. Europe was our favorite place to go, so we went back several times. We also went to California and other places, but Europe was our thing. In 1985, our real blessing came true. Our daughter, Ronnie, was born. Mark was truly in heaven. He was so devoted, loved coming home to his daughter. His parents and mine started coming out to see their adorable granddaughter, and we were just very lucky to have all 4 parents around. Mark's dad was very handy, so he used to come and fix anything I wanted. Why? Because Mark could not do it. Thank goodness Jeremy has inherited all his talent. So that brings us to Jeremy. 4 years later, after Ronnie was born, another blessing to all of us. Both children thrived in Syosset, and Mark made sure, as Jeremy said, he went to every activity he could. Ronnie's cheerleading, dance recitals. Mark coached every team Jeremy was on, whether it was softball, basketball, whatever. He gave confidence to him. He was a great dad. Mark's parents bought a bungalow upstate in the 90s, and we were lucky to be able to go up there every summer for weeks at a time. The kids loved it. Special ice cream times, movies outside, nature walks. We just had a blast on the lake. On weekends when we were not upstate, we joined a cabana club with several friends who are also here today, couple friends with kids. And we just had laid back barbecues at the beach. We stayed. There was a pool. It was just a very good life for us. Our friends started their own bowling league, couples. So we were sure to get together monthly with everyone. As the kids got older, Mark spent special times with his kids. He drove with Ronnie to Wisconsin, 16 hours straight. I wouldn't want to have been in that car. And with Jeremy, he actually went to several NCAA championship games in different states. It was amazing. The kids will never forget it. Of course, the Yankee games as well with Derek Jeter and Rivera. Actually, Mark was a Met fan, but when Jeremy came along, he just made us into Yankee fans. Okay, he was just so devoted to all of us. He also, of course, as being a family man, took care of his mom after his father died several years ago. He was there for her, spoke to her every day. I mean, there are no words. When Ronnie had Madden, Spencer, and Grayson, he was especially excited. It was a new chapter for us, and they were so special to him. He was the fun pa. I was the caregiver. Okay, they didn't love me as much. Sadly, though, Mark retired 9 years ago. He lost his dad. He had knee surgery, which prevented him from his sports. He became a little lonely and depressed. His body totally changed. He started to develop problems. But I have to tell you seriously a story that happened this weekend that is mind-boggling, and I hope he hears me. His stomach distended in the last few years, and every doctor said, you're not eating right, you need a nutritionist. Okay, when he had his body scan for the bleeding that was going on in his body this weekend, they told me he had a volleyball-sized tumor in his stomach. It was benign. It didn't cause any problems, so no one checked it out. And I'm beside myself thinking that for 9 years, it was growing or whatever was happening. And all the doctors we saw, and there were many, not one said, check it out. I mean, they just thought he was fat. And I have to admit, I did too. I mean, you're getting fat. Watch what you eat. Okay. That's neither here nor there. My husband had a heart of gold, an ability to write some Facebook posts you may think were way out of line. He was humorous, caring, devoted. I will really miss our daily Starbucks runs, our 45 years of SNL watching, our European trips, our playtime with the girls, our on-parade diner, our potato chip nights. But I do think it's fitting that the hospital that he died in was very near to Pilgrim and all the ball fields that he played in. It was good times for him, and maybe he remembered when he drove by.
Harriet, that was so beautiful. And it was so you. And you know, you mentioned Mark's dancing, but he also sang. He's sang New York, New York at Pilgrim. He sang New York, New York at the Pilgrim Psychiatric Center solo before 300 people. Yeah. Was he any good? I mean, the best. So it wasn't only dancing, it was singing too. And I'm sure he heard every word you said. We call now on Arnie Hyman and Levi, good friends of Mark, for a few words.
Try to project. Borny, our dear, wonderful Borny. Not a good start. So why do we call him Borny? It's really very simple. There were 3 Marks in the same group at our camp because all good Jewish mothers that needed an American name that sounded with an M in it, needed an M in the name, guess what? They all named their son Mark. So we had 3 of them, Mark Levison, Mark Rutenberg, and Mark Borenstein, also known as Levy, Rutenberg, and Borny. So we called him Borny. Make people crazy who we know in the area that didn't know him as Borny. Well, who was Borny? He was the guy you called at 3 in the morning when you needed to talk because you knew he was awake. He was the guy who went out when you truly wanted to have a great time and break most of the rules until the dawn sun began to shine. He was always there to make you laugh when you needed it most. He could be the zaniest, craziest person in the room, and also the quietest and most empathetic when that was appropriate. If you had a crazy idea, as my wife had, that Jeremy talked about, by driving to Miami, she remembers it at 23 hours, so we can argue about that. Who better? Well, she was there. Who better? Who better to be your co-pilot than Borny, who happened to get busted just as they reached the good old New Jersey border for driving 68 miles per hour in a 65 mile per hour zone. Harriet will comment on that later. He was still on probation, and I think that the episode cost Ziska, his father, a pretty penny to save his license for the next 3 years. But Wendy will tell you, I'm sure he would concur, it was still a great and wonderful trip. We were all together for the Six-Day War, the Yom Kippur War, when Neil Armstrong took the first walk on the moon, the Vietnam draft lottery, Nixon's resignation, and even when Al Gore invented the internet, which is a joke. We shared the wild 60s and 70s together. When my kids were little, Borny sported a solid beard, really good one. They would play pirate every night in the tub, soaking in the bubbles, and would lather themselves up with bubble bath and argue which one was Pirate Borny. We trash talked each other playing basketball. I cured his old desire to go hiking by almost poisoning him making hot dogs on one of our hikes to Mount Washington. He got frostbite chasing our dog in the dead of winter. We tobogganed together at winter camp, got stuck on a 24-hour road trip to Canada, supposed to only take 8 hours, but we just continued to go even though the highways were closed because of ice and snow. We even shared, you can't hear this, kids, a smuggled bottle of vodka in camp before we were old enough to drink. Don't tell Sutka. Sutka, we didn't really want to know that you know that, or my mother as well. And we held each other tight when our fathers died.
When we heard that Borny had left the earth, we reached out to our friends and asked them to submit some stories and share their feelings about him. The stories started pouring in. The memories of the laughter and the tears that we all shared over many years were overwhelming. We've decided that it would be best to gather them all together, with photos, of course, and produce a book that we will present to his family to try and capture a small piece of the bright light that was Borny. I'd like to share 2 excerpts from the responses that we received with you this afternoon. From Victor Rayboy. I heard this morning that our sweet Borny has passed. This is so very sad. He was my single oldest friend. We were bunk mates in the Ameline camp my first summer in 1961. Borny and I had a fight that summer. He slapped me around a lot. I can remember that fight clear as if it were yesterday. I remember sleeping over at his apartment when we were kids. His mom used to serve us soda and donuts for breakfast. As everyone knows, we were and remain a tight yet fairly large group of friends. This was forged in our shared experience growing up in the 60s at camp and in the movement. Now there is one less of us. A part of us has been ripped out, and it truly hurts. We were close in my late teens, his early 20s. What comes to mind is how caring, thoughtful, and helpful he was. In my early 20s before marriage, my car broke down in the Bronx one night. And when I was working in a group home, my parents were visiting my sister out of the country. I can't recall why Alan couldn't come. We didn't have cell phones in those days, but I called Borny. And he drove to the Bronx late at night to jump my car, and he succeeded. I was so appreciative. I wouldn't have been stranded there forever, but that was Borny. He was always willing to help. My husband, Alan, my sister, Carol, her husband, Gary, my mother, Borny's Aunt Helen, my daughters and Carol's sons and me, your cousin, Mimi. We all miss your presence in our family. You will be sorely missed. by our other family, the Camp in Harod family of friends.
So who was Borny? He was a great husband, a wonderful father, an enduring grandfather, and to us, he was a kind and caring friend. He was the best man, best man at our wedding 48 years ago next week. He was still one of the best men we have ever known. And he is indeed a brother from another mother, and no brother's bonds could ever be stronger.
So who was Borny? He was all that and so much more. Please rest in peace, our dear friend. Please rest in peace, our brother.
Like many of us here, I have known our friend Mark Borenstein for almost 60 years, if you can believe that. We first met in our summer camp in 1963, and we forged a bond at that time that lasted until recent events took him from us. I won't go into the story about how we both got nicknames, Borny and Levy, but I will say that when we did get those names, neither of us would have thought that those names would have lasted a lifetime, which is somewhat amazing. Shortly after we were married, myself and my darling wife, oh, there she is, we moved into an apartment in Jackson Heights, within walking distance of Borny and Harriet and John and Barbara. We lived close enough to be able to hop over to each other's houses very often. It was a very special time. I had been on many trips with Borny throughout our friendship. These trips included hitchhiking to Toronto, Canada. Of course, this was when hitchhiking was legal, if you'd like to believe that. And maybe the world was safer back then. We could not get to Toronto in one day, so we relied on the hospitality of a complete stranger and stayed in his house for one night, somewhere near the border, but it all worked out okay. The one trip that I do remember the most was when 5 of us traveled together in Israel back in 1973. We stayed in youth hostels at that time and also slept on the beach because our budget was very limited. But accommodations were not an important part of the trip. The essence of the trip was merely traveling together. On that trip, we ended up in Akko one day, and an Arab kindly offered to serve us tea. So we all sat down while he served us. But he decided that it was the women in the group that had a responsibility to serve the men. Since we did not want to start a war, we gladly accepted that offer while our female companions served us. And years later, we still find that story pretty hysterical. Last but not least, I was the best man at Harriet and Borny's wedding. We miss you, Borny, and we'll always remember you.
Thank you so much. Really wonderful stories, wonderful anecdotes, and the idea of creating a book of those stories is really marvelous. We call on Stephen now to say a few words about his father-in-law, together with Bradley, Johnny, and Ryan, good friends of both Stephen and Ronnie.
I'm Stephen. Mark's my father-in-law, but I first met him when I was in middle school. And even at that time, me and all my friends instantly fell in love with his humor, his kindness, his overall gentle and friendly nature. my friends will expand a little bit on that part of our relationship with some fun times that we had with him throughout the years. As my father-in-law, the father of my wife and the grandfather to my 3 girls, he was the absolute best. He was always there for us. If we needed anything, he would just show up with groceries, diapers, no questions asked. If the girls wanted a new toy, never a problem. He would never miss a chance to be with them, go to a dance recital, preschool graduation, or just take the opportunity to babysit and play Barbies with Madden and Spencer. He was the sweetest, most caring man I've ever known. He loved us all so much, and our family will forever have a void where he used to be. I love you, Mark.
I'm Ryan. Just want to say that Mark probably wishes we were all wearing basketball shorts right now. He'd probably love that. He was the kind of guy that no matter what myself or any of his non-blood children did, we were always okay in his book. He was there 100% of the time for us, no matter what. Every time there was a party or get together, him and I always found each other outside at a cool place because we were both sweating. And for that, we wanted to take a step back and be together. I'm thankful I sweat a lot for that reason. It also gave me more hours of Mark time. Mark, you'll always be in my heart, and I love you.
My name is Brad, and I was lucky enough to know and have Mark in my life for over 25 years. Like so many of us here, Mark was a friend, a father figure, a mentor, and always our biggest cheerleader. He stayed up to date what was going on in all of our lives, with sports, with girls, college selection, work, and all facets of our lives. He did that because he truly cared. He derived joy in the people around him succeeding and being happy in life. Mark made everyone feel like an extension of the Borenstein family. I remember what may have been once or easily 100 times going over to pick Ronnie up, walking into the house, her yelling from her room, 5 more minutes, and Mark calling up from the TV room, come down, she's gonna be a while. We would sit and watch whatever game was on TV, and he would take a genuine interest in my life. He would ask for updates on me and my friends and how everyone was doing and what we were up to, as well as talk sports and life. After an hour, Ronnie would come down. Mark would say something funny. We would laugh. Ronnie would say in a jestful manner, "Shut up, Dad, you're not funny. Brad, don't laugh." And off we would go. I loved Mark, and I truly valued our moments together. In the 25 years, I was lucky enough to know him and have him in my life. I miss him now so much, and he will forever be in my heart and in my thoughts.
You steal some of my notes?
I'm John. I'm also one of Ronnie and Steven's best friends. And along with these guys, we grew up and we've known Mark for most of our lives, and he's always been a father figure, a role model, and a friend. He's been one of our biggest cheerleaders and supporters, whether it's coming down to Miami to watch me run a marathon or coaching me in basketball, which I know he loved to do because 15, 20 years later, every time we saw each other, we'd still speak about it. How we beat the varsity basketball team, we won the championship, and he was so supportive. He'd always tell me how great of an athlete I was. He's never seen anybody jump so high. And then I'd ask him, well, how come you never really let me play then? And, with a big smile on his face, just gently tell me I just wasn't as good as the other guys. Mark was the type of guy that really, really cared about you, but wouldn't really want you to worry about him. I remember when he got knee surgery a few years back, I called him up, asked him how he was doing, and he responded, "Feeling okay, but the doctors say I may never dunk again." My friends and I have always thought of Mark as one of the guys, and he was always having a great time with us. There was one time we saw Mark and Jeremy at a Yankees game, and even though we thought he was one of the guys, we asked him for a beer. We weren't 21 yet, and a couple innings later, he sent us down some ice cream.
reminding us that there was still lines not to be crossed. He cared so much about the people in his life, and these guys, Stephen, Ronnie, Jeremy, Harriet, we're so lucky to be one of those people. We will all miss you, Mark, but the memories and life lessons that we share will live on for the rest of our lives. So I want to thank you for that, and just want to tell you that I love you.
I'm just going to read some words sent to me from Adam Stein. He couldn't make it here. Mark was like a father figure to him in high school. He wrote, "It saddens me deeply that I can't be here to pay my respects to the most generous, loving, laid-back man this planet has ever seen. At a time in my life where I needed guidance, he was there to help me. When I needed love, he was there to hug me. Most importantly, when I needed a friend, he needed me as a friend too. He had the biggest dad goggles I've ever seen. If you were in his circle, you could do no wrong. He could see the best in people when they couldn't see it in themselves. He was my mentor. He was my coach. He was a father I wished at times was my own. I'll miss him forever. I love you, Mark."
Great stories. Thank you. Ronnie?
Daddy, how is this possible? I've spent the last 5 days asking myself, screaming, pacing, vomiting, crying. I'm in disbelief. In between the tears, I've laughed and smiled at the stories I've heard and memories that resurfaced. You are one of a kind, to say the least, the funniest and the silliest, wisest and most grounding figure. You were warm, loving, helpful. You taught me to help others before anything. I followed in your footsteps into social work, even though I didn't love it at times, because I was taught to help those who needed it. You would pull over for people who had a flat tire, carry a pregnant woman up a flight of stairs as she threw up on you. You spent a good portion of your life as a social worker, and I hope I made you proud when at 5 months pregnant, I got that diploma. Over the past 5 days, I've had no less than a village of people, many of whom are here today helping me, bringing me my coffee, groceries, dinner, school drop-off, pickup, play dates, help with bedtimes, and emotional support, from aunts and uncles to mom friends to childhood friends. What did I do to deserve this? I might say it's because I myself am a big helper. If a friend is in need, I'm there, no questions, no judgments, no conditions, and I'm only talking about this right now because I learned it from you. So in thanking everyone for the unimaginable help they have shown me since Sunday, I would be remiss not to mention how truly it is a reflection of you. I've been thinking about so many things, hiding by the front window and seeing your car pull in the driveway after work day after day so I could run to the kitchen table, wait for the door to click, and I'd run as fast as I could and jump into your arms when you opened the door. Monster rides, covering you with a blanket every night because you'd fall asleep on the green couch watching Hidalgo or Man on Fire. The feel of your rough beard when I kissed you goodbye. Raisin Bran, kissing the mezuzah every time you left the house. Basketball, basketball, and more basketball. Your love for Coco, Cinnamon, and Jackson. Our summers at the bungalow. The delicious chili you made for my 5th grade project. Your walks to the bus stop with me every morning. You would literally cry when I got on the bus because you didn't want to say goodbye every single morning. You worried so much. Be careful crossing the street, careful getting in the car. But we should have been the ones worrying about you. You drove us everywhere. My friends and I could call you at midnight in high school, and you'd pick us up and drop everyone off at their house. Waited up for me night after night, asked me where I was, what I did, who I saw. You even gave Bagel Boss and On Parade Diner pictures of me and said, "Call if this girl is ever here drunk." Unfortunately, you got a few calls and have maybe even had to come carry me out a few times. But no matter what, you never judged me or got mad. We drove to Wisconsin for 16 hours and the time just passed with you. Talking and listening to music, our incredible but sad trip to Poland. I look at every picture from that trip and I see the pain in your eyes. I hugged you tight in every picture because all I ever wanted was for you to know how much I love you and how I wanted you to be happy. In any of my dark times, you were there. You would never judge me. I was never a burden to you. You were a voice of reason in our crazy family, and I don't know how I will go on without you. It was always the two of us. During the pandemic, I could call you to get me formula or my favorite Passover macaroons, and you would go within hours and drop them off outside my door. You would go to 2 supermarkets to find the right thing. Who else would ever do that for someone? You would drive just to put gas in my car. You would give me 20s every time I saw you. You supported us if we needed it, no questions asked. I'm a daddy's girl through and through. I'll think of you every time I order a steak, but I won't get it well done. A burger, but I will get the cheese. I'll miss the sound of your tea kettle going off, the ketchup in your beard, your vast sneaker collection, making fun of my ripped jeans, your cute limp, and how you texted and wrote Facebook rants about Trump with one finger. Must have taken hours. You even came with me to Soul Cycle once to see what the hype was. But what I'll miss the most is my girls having their pot. When I told you I was pregnant with Madden, you wrote Steven a guide to being a father that I still have. When I told you I was pregnant the second time, it was just by sending you a picture with a very faint line on the pregnancy test, and you wrote back, "Thank God we're not ready yet." I was very mad. Daddy, words will never describe the love and adoration that Matt and Spencer and even Grayson have for you. Who else would let them put stickers on the garage all over your car? They did your makeup and nails recently and even drew on your belly once. We were supposed to spend the summer swimming in your pool and barbecuing. They wanted to go back to Adventureland with you, and we were all working hard to throw you a big surprise 70th birthday. How can it be you'll never be at another graduation or dance recital or Shabbat again or weekly dinner when Amma is in Florida? You have taught me to see my girls through your eyes, to start saying yes more, to love them unconditionally and let them be silly, playful, and innocent children. You were everything to them. You showed up for everything. It was your greatest pride. Your face lit up when I showed you a picture or video of them. So when you didn't show up on Sunday to the dance recital, I knew something was horribly wrong. The last thing you told me was you would see me in the morning. You suffered a lot this week. I hope you are at peace now and with Grandpa. Life isn't fair. I know you're shooting hoops with a beer in hand and driving a 57 Chevy. I think I forgot to tell you that the sneakers you ordered for me just came and I love them. One line I love from the song that I danced with you at my wedding to is, "Don't know how long it's going to take to be okay, but I know I had the best day with you today. I love you forever and I will never be the same without you. You are my person."
Thank you, Ronnie. I know that wasn't easy. You managed to pack in about 30 years worth of memories into a relatively short address. But each one of those memories is a sacred fragment. It's a little piece of holiness that we cherish for the rest of our lives, and I know that you will. You know, I think there's a special place for all the people who work with mentally challenged individuals. And it's no surprise that Mark, as his chosen profession, was someone who worked in a psychiatric hospital and devoted so many hours and so much time of his professional life to helping those who are desperately in need. And I know that there's a special place in heaven for all of them. And I know that there's a very special place for Mark. He was obviously the child of Holocaust survivors, growing up as an only child in Jackson Heights, absorbing from his parents the trauma of an event that is ever present in the consciousness of those who witnessed it. And the experience undoubtedly shaped so much of who he was and who he will continue to be in our own memories. He was a wonderful son to Sitka. The two of them would speak each day for an hour, and he would come over every Friday night to make sure that she had enough food and to do the bills. And I'm so sorry, Sitka, that part of your life now has been witnessing this Gutta Neshama pass from this world and into the next. And yet it was you who, perhaps more than anyone else in the family, was able to come to terms with his leaving before anyone else. And in acknowledging the fact that you had him all these years and what a blessing that was. And each of you have had Dad for all of these years, your husband for all of these years. And every single year and every single month, every single day was a blessing. And they're blessings that no one can take away from us. But it takes a special and unbreakable faith to be able to verbalize such strength. So Sitka, thank you for giving the whole family and perhaps all of us the strength to acknowledge that blessing. It's an uneasy fact that trauma can be inherited from one generation to the next. And such trauma can capture a soul and lead it into many dark places. And I suspect that Mark spent some time in those darkened spaces. And yet, when we think about this man as a whole, the image that we have of him is not someone who occupies a dark space, but someone who really was a source of light, someone who was giving, who was always doing, and who never gave up on humanity in spite of everything that we know about humanity. And that certainly is an example of holiness. Mark would never have described it as such, but I would. To live one's life with that kind of positivity, with that kind of optimism, with that kind of faith in the world around you, that is a form of holiness. And I thank Mark for giving us that kind of example. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Let us live one day at a time, and let us enjoy one moment at a time. May we understand hardship as a path to peace, and the world, sinful though it is, a work in progress, for creation shall not end until we have righted all the wrongs. We trust, Lord, that your will is that we make all things right. And to do this, our will, we must surrender to yours. May the work of our hands bring us a measure of happiness, both in this world and in the world to come. This family was faced with a tough decision the past couple of days, a decision that no family should ever have to face. But you made the right decision. And in making that right decision, we are now left with the powerful energy of memories of a man who lived his life well. And for that, we have to be ever grateful to God. Alava Shalom, may Mark rest in peace. Zichrono livracha, every time we think of him, may his memory bring us blessings. We rise for the El Malei Rachamim, the memorial prayer. El Malei Rachamim Shochem Bamaromim Hamatzei Menucha Nechona Tacha Kanfei HaShechina B'malo Kedoshim Etorim Kizor Rakia Masirim Et Nishmat Mendel Yoshua Ben Ziskin Visitka Shalach Liolamo Began Eden Tehi Menuchato Anna Balarachamim Astireu Beseter Kenafecha Leolamim Utzaror Bitzra Chayim En Nishmato Adonai unachalato. V'yanua b'shalom amishkavo. V'nomar amen. Ribono Shalom, Master of the universe, creator of heaven, of earth, of woman, of man, be gracious to us, your children who mourn. May the light of your presence dispel the gloom of absence so keenly felt on this sad day. Bless us with your compassion, empower us with your love, touch us with the fullness of your heart, that we may be granted inner peace. Was it not you who said, "Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you, I will help you, I will sustain you with my power." As we remember the blessings in Mark's life, we ask you, Eternal One, to remember your promises to us. And let us all say Amen. Kvura, the burial, will take place at the Mount Golda Cemetery in Huntington Station, New York. Shiva will begin at Harriet's, and your visits are welcome Sunday and Monday, 12 to 4 and 7 to 9. And it will continue Tuesday and Wednesday at Ronnie and Stevens, 29 Victor Lane in Woodbury. And again, your visits most welcome 12 to 4 and 7 to 9.
Ladies and gentlemen, this now concludes our service. You may exit through the lobby. Please return the keys into your car so we can leave the cemetery. Thank you.